You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. Adding to that is the Doghouse, and so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other. If you're looking for a way to make a real difference, check out Bethany Children's Health Center. They're helping children reach their full potential as a leader in pediatric rehabilitation. They're also building a new Outpatient Center of Excellence, and it's going to be a landmark right on Route 66. Want to learn more or even schedule a tour? Just head to bethanychildrens.org and click on the Ways to Give tab. That's bethanychildrens.org. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are down in the Bedford studio at Bedford's Camera. It's a pleasure to sit down with my guest because we've been probably trying to do this for like 4 years since I started the podcast, but things are worth waiting for. You've probably seen all of his work around town. If you live in the Plaza, you know who I'm talking about today. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Dusty Gilpin.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude, I think we've known each other for a really long time, but like I think the first time we like met was at Skirvin. We sat,
Correct.
You were having food with your wife, and I was there, and I was like, and Valona was like, do you guys know each other? And we're like, no. And then she's like, oh, it's Dusty. It's fine. Yo, yeah, of course we do.
Yeah.
Like been sending messages
like
to each
a
other.
soft opening or something.
Yeah,
that's
some
so
restaurant opening, right?
Yeah.
Which is not there anymore. Now it's something else. Hopefully the new one lasts a little longer. But yeah, man. I mean, you've designed T-shirts, you've painted, you've done all this cool stuff. You have a cool van. You have two cool vans, maybe more. We'll get into that. But let's dive into way back, man. Were you just like a kid that just like had a pad and was drawing and making things and painting and just, being creative? Like, how does it all start?
Yeah, well, so... I mean, I did. I grew up in an art studio. I was super lucky. My granddad was an illustrator, and he had a graphic design studio just on 13th and Class in 1952. And then my dad went to work for him. And so as a kid, I was super lucky and just got to kind of be hanging out in this old school graphic design studio. And back then, they were like literally cutting and pasting things like with glue and knives, cut and paste, or airbrush tool, was actually an airbrush, not like, and it just slowly, my dad started doing commercial graphic design, like with the computer and stuff. And so I just kind of got to do that. So, I mean, I went to college at OSU for a little bit whenever I got old enough to do that, but ended up leaving just kind of because I had the know-how of graphic design and started a little T-shirt shop in Oklahoma City with some friends and just kind of bloomed from there. It just went into full-time art eventually.
It's amazing. So when I think of earliest memories for me, and it's usually around sport, golf, football, it's like smell of the grass in the morning, like the smell of, we had like, we'd call it icy hot back home, but like the distinct smells that come to mind. What kind of things remind you then of that? Do you get like, is it a smell? Is it a different sense that you think of, oh, this takes me all the way back to my childhood? Like first thing I think of is kind of like the glue and the paint.
That is interesting. What like spray adhesive. They used to use spray adhesive, which was like, aerosol can glue or whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, like, or even in a place like this where there's photography paper, like that film, that, like, I don't know, commercial building, just that's what it was like. It's great. Yeah.
Is the building still there?
The building on 13th and Classen is still there. It's just right. I mean, there's a huge mural by Dylan Bradway right next to it that you can see, but the office building is still there. Yeah. 1330 Classen. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It'd be so cool to complete the full circle.
Yeah.
To go back.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. I mean, I and my other granddad had an antique store at the end of Classen, kind of where the high-low area is, Edna's area. And so I do constantly drive up and down Classen. I'm like, this might, generations have been driving just this street or whatever, kind of fascinating. It's interesting.
So Dad is obviously involved as well in the business.
Yes, yeah. My dad still cuts vinyl signs and does design. He's still a designer,
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what got your granddad into it? Like how he got his start?
Well, he liked to draw, and so that just, I think, back in the day, if you were a good artist, that was an avenue for employment. He was in World War II, and when he came back on the GI Bill, he started going to OSU, and he was doing illustrations and stuff for OSU.
Yeah.
So there's some like Pistol Pete stuff that he did way back in the day. Used to do all the like football covers, all the college book covers, like for each specific college they would have whatever. Veterinary Sciences would have their own book, and so he would illustrate the front of it.
That's awesome.
And that was kind of his like bigger client. I mean, OSU in like the 70s and 80s used him a lot to do a lot of stuff, and so that would be like his kind of claim to fame or whatever. There's like a very kind of classic looking Pistol Pete, very like from the 70s retro style, but it's the one that my granddad did, which is, I'm very proud of that legacy.
Yeah, that's a really cool legacy to be a part of, right? And it's been, was it 100 years last year of Pistol Pete, I think?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, they had something like, I think that's what it is. Had a few Pistol Petes on the podcast and they mentioned it. It's a cool legacy, and clearly you have OSU ties because you end up going there for a little bit. When you're growing up and you're seeing your granddad do all this and then your dad's around it and their de facto babysitting is putting you with them, right? And you're just like, do what can. You have the run of the shop to create.
Right.
What are you creating?
Man, so they used to have this big, it was basically like an overhead projector, but it would be mounted on the wall. And it was called an artograph. And so what you could do is you could like scale an image, you'd put your image on there and then you could adjust it and scale it and it would project it onto the table, and then you could trace it out or draw it, to make your text fit inside that or whatever. And so that was like kind of my foundation for drawing. They, if I'm sitting there running my mouth too much, they'd stick a cartoon up in there, here, draw Popeye or something like that or whatever. And so, I mean, flipping through those old drawing books or whatever, reference materials. I mean, I still have books that I had like in my granddad's studio, very formative,
Yeah.
And some are like great, like How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, by Stan Lee or just some of those classic like Walter Foster drawing books where it's like you draw a circle, then you draw two circles, and you have a cat at the end or something like that. Like that was all very formative for me. So
was it always growing up thinking this is going to be a career for me? I see, I'm a generation to do this, like third generation to do this. Granddad's doing it, dad's doing it. They're making a living. You just kind of thinking I'm always going to make a career out of this and I just need to pick my lane? Were you making money before you went to college?
No, I've never made money.
True artist.
Still working on that. No, but I mean, I think, they were doing it like, and I was super lucky to grow up and get to see the way like letter structures are made and how to render type or set it up in a balanced way. And I think that, and also just being in Oklahoma City, I was born in 85, and so kind of the 80s and 90s in Oklahoma City wasn't really popping here, believe it or not. There was like kind of a sheltered thing from like the wild style of art or street art and that kind of stuff. So that would have been my rambunctious deviation from the norms of or from the rules of graphic design.
Yeah.
So by the time I was like 16 or whatever, got my hands on some spray paint and would go spray paint in the ditches and really try to dig up and try to find like things that I wasn't familiar with. Graffiti wasn't something that was just happening in Oklahoma City in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
There was a very handful of people that were doing it here. And so then that is what slowly turned into painting murals. Or, I went from like graphic design to doing screen printing for like t-shirts and that kind of stuff. And there is still like a nice blend of graphic design, but the screen printing side is like getting your hands like dirty, actually applying it or whatever. So I think that kind of broke that barrier between like design and like studio art. Like being messy.
Getting your hands on.
My hands are dirty, like as we see.
Right? Always painting. Why? So why? What was the decision to go to Oklahoma State? And then when going to Oklahoma State, as you're in there, you're going there. You're like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do this as a career, what is my career going to be?
I think the going into the arts was always a career choice for me. And I didn't leave Oklahoma State for any reason in particular. I just left because I had a friend here. His name's John Milner, still around. And we just
has the carpet business. John
his
Miller?
dad does.
I know John. Hey, John.
Now, he's still in Oklahoma City
Commercial
doing
carpet
stuff.
and flooring business. Yeah.
And he had a screen printing press that he had acquired or bought, and it was new in the box, but it was like kind of a deal. He was working out with another friend, and we had just got on a random conversation about life and what was going on. And I said, yeah, I'm doing art, and I think I'd like to, screen print t-shirts. And he was like, I've got this press in a garage. Next time you're in town, come and look at it or whatever. And I ended up just building it and teaching myself how to screen print, and we just kind of worked out a deal where I would come and print and he would set up the jobs, and just that's what started Tree and Leaf was that company. And so that was just printing t-shirts for high schools and churches. And so I was going to school for graphic design and getting critiques from my peers and my teachers and that kind of stuff, all at the same time of actually like doing design for whatever, high schools and that kind of stuff. And eventually I was just I would go up and go to school and then come home immediately, and it just was too much of a conflict. I was losing sleep driving back and forth, and it's just like I could just do this. I can always go back to school.
Yeah. This is a career. This is a career job making money, and you're in your 20s. You're like, why do I need to go to a professor? Right.
I know
exactly.
More than you. 100%. Yeah, I'm invincible.
I've done the internship from my entire childhood to before I came to school.
Right. Yeah. And so that was it. Then eventually, in I'd say around 2007 and 8, that's when the Plaza just kind of barely got, started doing stuff. Bad Grannies has opened up, and the tattoo shop opened up, and DNA Galleries and Collected Thread. And I started screen printing shirts for those businesses. And then, just kind of that. I think that was when I finally met like my Plaza family or whatever.
Yeah.
That was when things were like, oh, this is like Oklahoma City's doing something here.
Yeah.
This is where I can find home, kind of put my foot in this like art scene door or whatever.
It's amazing, for you to be a part of the Plaza since it's basically inception, right? Like, and also to have your studio there and be a kind of integral part of the community now.
Yeah. I love that neighborhood. And I met my wife in that neighborhood. Kristen was the director whenever I would be down there printing T-shirts. And, I didn't even have a business down there. Yeah. I was just doing business with those businesses, or going to their art shows or their live on the Plaza when it was like super early, premature, doing live painting and that kind of stuff. But then I think it was like 2013 is when I opened a business down there.
Yeah.
There was a retail space that opened up, and that since then has been like I've just been there.
Okay. So is that what Tree and Leaf was? Like where
DNA. Well, right now is good for a few.
Good for a few space next to New State.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was in that space for 6 years. And at that time, I had another studio in the Plaza. So at one point, I had 2 studios in the Plaza. One was the retail location, and the other was just where I was manufacturing the shirts and the products that we were selling. So, it was great. Then eventually I closed the store, kept the art studio, and I just stayed there. And that slowly transitioned from retail art to like just commercial art, painting signs and murals and doing design work for people or whatever.
Okay, so you're still kind of finding, when the t-shirt thing is happening and you're doing all this, are you still finding time to get out and do some outdoor, not murals, but tagging and just kind of getting your graffiti kicks as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, and
like that's your release versus your work for t-shirts and stuff.
Sure, yes. And even the store gave me this awesome platform as well. Like having that retail location, we could do events like drink and draw or whatever. We made that like a weekly thing. It was like, we have the space. Let's just open up and put our tables out and people can come and draw. And at the time there weren't like just places where people could go draw. That's like a weird thing. Yeah. And so, I mean, I met so many awesome artists that just from having a space and opening the doors. And so that was like a release as well, you know, and then you have all these other artists that are in there and they're brainstorming and you get an idea for a product. Or, you know, somebody says, hey, we should do this for a live on the Plaza. And you're like, yeah, let's do it, you know. So the store, while it was like a business, I mean, it was kind of like a clubhouse. It was like a fantasy factory. It was great. We could do anything there just because we had the space, you know.
That's like my perfect idea of a business too, right? Just you have a meeting place for your community of business owners. You just want to cultivate ideas, but also just come hang out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, sure, if you want to buy something. But, like, you know, it also makes work a lot more fun that way.
Oh, definitely.
You know, just sat in the store, you know, twiddling your thumbs, being like, I hope someone comes in today.
Yeah, stuck behind a retail counter is a difficult place to be. But you can, it's, again, like a place is very important.
Yeah. So you did the drink and draws. What, is there anything from the drink and draws? You mentioned, you know, different ideas that are popping around, and what are some of your favorite things that come out of that? Like, you look back now, you know, let's say 10 years after all that stuff, and you're like, oh, this business popped up. Well, this, like, what's the spider web that comes out of?
So, not necessarily just from those like drink and draws or whatever, but just the screen printing like side of it, you know, because we would be printing and occasionally we would have these kids come in and they would, you know, they'd see us back there like squeegeeing the shirts and stuff like that, and they'd be interested, or they'd have a punk band or something like that and they'd want to get some shirts made, and eventually we'd hire these kids, and like a lot of those kids are now like successful in art. And like, so, you know, I name drop sometimes, but like Tanner Frady is like an incredible sign painter here in Oklahoma City. And he was one of our first employees at Tree and Leaf. You know, Taylor Dickerson was is an artist, and you know, did pottery and ceramic stuff, and he does the Down to Dunk podcast. And you know, John Milner is artistic in his own way. But their Chroma print shop, Philip Bearshield, came out of Tree and Leaf. And so when I get to look at like what these people have done, Ian Spencer is like an incredible photographer, and that, you know, we had a place where these artists could like express themselves in their own, like doing their own thing or whatever, whether it was music or photography or whatever, tattoo. People do tattoos now, you know. It's great.
So, it's cool to kind of connect that to the way that you grew up.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, you know, you grew up watching your granddad and your dad do this, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to cultivate my own kind of space that people can come do this. And now in the future, you know, looking back on it from now, you're like, oh, you know, you never notice it in the moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Oh, this person just kind of, you know, he does, we all love doing the same thing. And, you know, you look back 10 plus years after, and you're like, oh, yeah, this person, like, they got their start roughly where I was, because there was a safe space to do it.
Right.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
I love that. And I like, you know, typical me as a kid, I would draw cars and houses, and that was about it. You know, every car you draw is a red one when you're a kid, right? Like, just kind of thinking of Ferraris or whatever. But I think that's fundamentally one of the first things you do as a kid, right? It's like, here's a box of colored pencils or crayons or whatever, and just go draw. Or you irritate your parents because you draw on the wall. You know, whatever it is, like, that's like, it's kind of in us from a young age.
Sure.
And I think all of us still, I mean, even if you're not great at drawing, it's just that like, oh, I'm creating and my mind's transferring something to the paper.
Yeah. Some of the, that drink and draw, what we were talking about, like you just have the door open so people can come and draw. And so you would have a lot of dedicated artists, character artists, and graffiti guys or graphic designers or whatever. But some of the interesting cartoons or illustrations are people that are not artists, and they'd just be coming through and be like, oh, I want to sit and draw or whatever. And they would doodle some random thing. You're like, well, that's so interesting to see what your brain creates. You're not even like a trained artist, but what you can come up with or just in your doodle is so fascinating. Yeah,
that's sometimes the cool stuff, right? Like you said, they're coming in with no formal training.
Yeah, right.
So it's just like
no rules. Yeah.
You ask them to explain it, and they're like, "Well, I just did it."
Yeah,
there's no explanation.
This is the guy I always draw when I draw a guy. Like, oh, that's cool. But
so when you're doing this, you have the store, you have commercial clients, you're printing T-shirts. Do we have a basketball team at that point? Have you? Because that's a lot. You've done a lot of cool stuff recently, and over the last years with basketball. But what is the state of that? When you have
we got the basketball team in 2006, I think, right? And it was at the time it wasn't even the Thunder.
Yeah.
So I think 2008 was when we got the Thunder. I'm not 100% on that, but when that happened. Again, we were still small, Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot going on. And so when we got the team, that was like such a big deal. The city's going crazy. And nobody was really making like bootleg T-shirts. And so that's where we came in,
Yeah.
So we partnered with Royce Young at the time. Mm-hmm. He was doing not Down to Dunk podcast, but the Daily Thunder podcast and blog. It was a blog at the time. And so we started partnering with him. He would be like, come up with some silly idea for a T-shirt, and then I'd illustrate it, the Durantula or whatever. Hustle Westbrook, that kind of stuff. James Harden, so we had like a shirt with a beard on it,
I think I had one of those.
Really?
It was just a beard outline, right? Yeah, I had one,
Yeah, and whatever pop culture reference happened at the time, or mashup or something like that, we would do, and that stuff had great traction, And at the same time, we were also doing like just not parody Oklahoma shirts, but shirts about the city, Home Sweet Homa or those types of things. Which again, there wasn't a lot of that in those early days. People weren't particularly celebrating living here.
Right. Yeah.
and so we were, we were excited about it, and so that kind of led into what it is now. I still, even though I don't have a screen printing press anymore, I still do a lot of T-shirt designs for people.
Yeah.
Again, Daily Thunder or just the Thunder. I do stuff with the Thunder occasionally. Just depends, but
yeah, because like from that moment, you have all these businesses that are popping up, right? You got Opolis, you got Blue Savin, you got all these, that are just like, we love Oklahoma City, and then there's this huge passion for Oklahoma City. And I got here in 2011, so I'd kind of seen that and got here like probably the right time for it too. You got to see it before when no one really cared.
Yeah,
right. No one was like shouting from the rooftops that they're from Oklahoma City, and now it's like there's T-shirts, there's and the one thing that people I've noticed people do in the States when they travel is they always wear something from where they're from, whether it's their college team or their hometown.
Sure,
right. And now I see it all the time. If someone's wearing an OKC shirt,
a jersey or whatever,
you didn't see much at all,
right?
But it's cool to now have that, right? I mean, you can go any store pretty much, you can find something that.
Definitely.
It's not, like I said, it's not from the Thunder store. It's just their own design, whether it's a lightning bolt, a basketball, and it doesn't have to be basketball related. It's just that's kind of the obviously it's the playoff season. That's the thing right now. But it must have been cool for you to be a part of that because. You mentioned T-shirts. Now, did you do the dog one?
I did.
Yeah. So you did the famous dog one, and then did you do the Gallo one recently?
I did. Yeah, a little post-game Gallo guy. Yeah.
So good. What's that like? Seeing like creating a design, and then literally like a week, days after, you see the guy you've designed the T-shirt for warming up in it.
Yeah, I mean it's that's a funny feeling, right? I mean it's great. Like that means it's successful if you can get it to where it needs to go, because it doesn't always. I mean it's got to pass through hands or whatever. But it's nice because when your art does make it into the hands, and it doesn't have to be a professional basketball player, but just anybody that is higher up, whether it's the front man of the band wore it on stage or something like that. It validates it to other people. And so, whoever it is, if they wear it on stage, then there are other patrons that see it and they go, oh, that is cool after all, because the cool guy wore it, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. And so, that's part of the game in art is like getting your stuff out there. It's advertising. And so, if you can do the shirt and then the player wears it in the warm up, that's the good formula.
And then you go to the game or you're around the arena and you just see everybody you're just like,
it's fun. It's great.
And they might not know who you are,
no,
right?
they have
so it's
no
just
idea.
Like, wait a second.
I'm just
a cool inner feeling for you. And I'm sure your wife's like, there's an O.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of,
it was entertaining.
Kind of normal now.
I was entertaining some friends from out of town last night for the Thunder game or whatever, and they were kind of asking what type of art I do, and we got about the shirts, and there's like people walking around and be like, yeah, like that one, or this lady came up and talked to us. I was like, I did that shirt, And it's cool because T-shirts are such a tangible way for art to live and a very accessible thing as well. It's $25. You don't have to buy a canvas that's $500 and there's only one of those canvases. Well, we can make, thousands of T-shirts. And so it does have a broad audience and they're great. They're like billboards,
Absolutely. And people will always remember that moment.
Yeah.
Right? People, especially with like the dog one and the Gala one.
Right. It's so, dated.
Polar moments, right? It's like Gala with a towel or an ET or whatever it is, and
so obscure too,
because of the dog thing. Like that's the great thing about sport.
Yeah,
right. There's so many emotion tied into but you with the T-shirt you tie into that as well.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Yeah, it is.
Let's dive into the mural side of things then, because I think it kind of ties in with the city growing, Plaza growing, Plaza walls. This great group of people that come together, and all these talents that come together that are just, like you see some of the stuff. Yesterday, they finished the Shea mural.
Yes.
Right. Were you involved in that?
Just cursory, kind of.
So, the city comes together, and obviously back when you started doing this and graffitiing, like, there was no sort of government city funds around.
No, not really.
Giving you like Oklahoma murals and all these kind of organizations weren't funding you to go tag houses and tag buildings and stuff. Whereas now, Oklahoma City is kind of known for its public art and its murals, and every business is like, I got to have something to draw people in, and you got to have a refresh. I mean, that Steven Adams one was there forever.
Still is. I think, right?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I thought the new Shea one was in the same place.
No.
Oh, they hadn't covered it
right
up.
Down the street.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I haven't seen it live. Exactly. Like things like Stand the Test of Time. Film Row's got a great one.
Yeah.
Right, only around the corner, right? On that building, that bar area. But there's so many, and there's so many cool. Whether it's Pyramid Guy, Carlos Barbosa, yourself. I mean, it's this really cool growth of public artwork.
Definitely.
How's that been for you? How's that been to see it? What's it like, getting phone calls or people like, hey, come do mine? And like, that's a new revenue stream for you as well.
Oh, yeah.
When you're thinking, I just do T-shirts or I do, this and that and design, stuff. But then you're like, oh, no, I get to see my work on
a large
30 by 40 wall. What's that been like? What's the growth of that been like? And then the acceptance of it as well versus there wasn't probably much acceptance of it when you started.
Yeah. I mean, again, when I started, there weren't a ton of murals. There was an artist named Bob Palmer who painted a lot of stuff in Oklahoma City. There's a gentleman named Claude Sanderson who was a sign painter, did a lot of signs in Oklahoma City. But really the legal architecture in our city kind of kept murals from being painted. Like there were laws specifically like you cannot put something like if Bedford wanted a big camera on the outside of their building, well, you can't do that because then that's a sign. And if it's a sign, then it can only be a certain size. And so it was very complicated.
Regulation around
yes, there were a lot of regulation about it. And so just recently, those rules did get changed. A lot of artists did get together. And with the work of Robbie Kinzel, who worked for the city, they changed ordinances to allow murals to be painted. The Plaza walls was originally a project that like they had to go through some loopholes just to get it because they didn't understand what we were wanting. Like, we want a mural that we can rotate every year. And they're like, well, if you rotate it every year, then you have to get an approval every year. And it was so complicated, but eventually they kind of figured this way. And they saw, we did it. And Chris Canale and Dylan Bradway, they're the pioneers of the Plaza walls. Being able to get those murals rotating, and then it like starts to click, then you activate this crummy little alley into a outdoor gallery, right? It's nasty and dirty, and then you paint some murals, and like people start walking down there and they pick up their trash a little bit better, and it just becomes a better thing. And so I think that's like a big thing is like activating space. Oklahoma City is such a sprawled city. Like even the businesses here have lawns, So that means we have a lot of wall space in this town, and there's it's not a saturated industry. There's not a lot of muralists in Oklahoma City. And I mean, when I kind of started, there were literally like maybe a dozen muralists in Oklahoma City. And now we probably have, 50 with a backup of 100 younger ones that are ready to start painting. So, watching it grow is incredible. I'm stoked, even like that Shea mural that we were just talking about. That's an out-of-town art agency that came in and painted that. But to me, that's like so validating, like because it's just like, our city is so big and so cool that Converse wants to pay to have a mural installed here. It wasn't necessarily local artists that installed it, but that's okay. We got, there's another mural here. So I'm always just stoked to see anything painted. It doesn't have to be a good mural. It's better than nothing, in my opinion.
Right. It's interesting you say that, because a lot of people, if my first instinct would be like, they chose someone else to do it, that's kind of a kick in the teeth for everyone here, because we've got, like I said, great artists. But then looking at it, like from your perspective, like, no, like that's a validation that Converse, giant global brand, sponsor of Shea, wants to come in and put this huge mural on, on a building.
Yeah, we definitely have artists here that are equally qualified to do that. And sure, I would love it if whatever those big brands wanted to pay for a local person to install it. Sure, 100%. But I'm also just stoked that a mural is getting installed, and it kind of gives us an opportunity too when they send an artist from LA or Chicago or New York City to Oklahoma City, and we get a chance to like represent here, and they go, oh man, like the Plaza is dope, like I wouldn't have expected this whenever I got off my plane or whatever, there is an art scene here, or man, this restaurant's really good. So I like that. I love being an advocate for the city.
Tell me about your process. What's it like? You're putting this giant piece of artwork on a wall. For me, I'm like, that's nervous that I've got to put my piece. It's great. You can control the space, right? A T-shirt, whatever it is. Like, I can do this. When you blow that up and you put it on a wall, and for the world to see, my anxiety peaks straight away, right? I'm like, but interested to dive into your process, and then that feeling you get, when you step back and you look up and it's finally done, and you're just like, talk to me about that, the process and that feeling. For
me, the best part is just to be in the installation mode. The process on paper or designing on a computer is one thing, but it's monotonous to me. I would so much rather just be up against the wall painting, cutting whatever line. There's something about like, maybe just it's mentally draining to be putting it on paper, but once it's projected or pounced, or you have your grid or your pattern, however you're going to get it on the wall, once it's all traced out and ready to be painted, then you can kind of just cut loose, and it's like almost meditation at that point. You've got your headphones in, or you're hanging out with one of your closest friends, and it's 100 degrees outside and you're sweating, but you're installing this thing. It's that unreal feeling. Or like being on like a boom lift at like 6:30 in the morning and just being up somewhere and kind of watching people commute to work or whatever. It's just an amazing feeling to be like, oh, this is like, I mean, we joke around a lot, but we're like, this is the best job ever. You know, every job is the best job when you're like up there on a lift or you're like painting it. It's a good feeling.
You spray can or brush?
Both. I am pretty versatile in my art, and so sometimes I'll be painting a sign that might require like an oil-based enamel, like one shot and a little tiny brush, or a spray can, or a big latex spray rig. You know, we might be like coating a big section. So I kind of do just whatever is necessary. You know. You
mentioned music. What are you listening to?
Oh, man. I mean, I listen to a lot of old school hip hop still. I listen to a lot of new hip hop. And I listen to a lot of old school, like classic country, you know. And then just kind of the other Oklahoma usual, like the Flaming Lips and that kind of stuff, you know.
Okay.
I'm all over the place, of course. That's so cliche to say, but I listen to a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Do you have to have music there? Or you have to?
Yes, 100%. 100%. And I even would say my contemporaries, you know, we have a little studio. It's a shared space, but there is always music playing inside that studio. And so a lot of times, you know, again, I share a space with 4 other artists, so I get to listen to what they're listening to a lot of times. And it's great, but there is always music playing. I think there's something for many artists to almost have that ambient noise or something happening in the background while your hands are moving. It just helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the cars and the vans.
Let's go.
How does that happen? When do you get the current van?
Current van.
How long have you had the current van for?
I've had the current van since 2020. Okay. I got that actually as part of a mural project. It was called Rollin' Deep. It was out in Edmond in a mural festival that I set up, and we needed a vehicle to paint, and so we got on Facebook Marketplace and found this old van for $1,000 or something, and here I am still driving this old van.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you entered into the van world? Or
No.
One?
I had another one prior to that was a 1969 Chevy van. It was great. I mean, I say great in like kind of a romantic way. Right. Yeah. It was not great, but it got me from point A to point B. So no, I've had vans for a while. I've always had like a classic car. I have an old Malibu that I've had for a very long time. And my uncles were very into automotive stuff, you know, mechanics, and cousins are mechanics. And so I kind of got to grow up. Oklahoma City is also a city that like developed around the automobile. You know, Route 66, you know, the longest stretch is in Oklahoma, and we still honor and cherish that. I mean, we're very into that tradition. Whatever, street racing and cruising and Cars and Coffee is like a huge event that we do every month. So
and that's one thing for me. Like, I kind of grew up watching Top Gear, you know, original Top Gear, and fell in love with cars. And you know, I come out here and, you know, someone's like, "Hey, what are you doing? You know, first Saturday of the month." I'm like, "I'm in bed, nothing." And you know, it's 6 o'clock, right? And they're like, "Oh, come to Coffee and Cars." And I show up, and I'm just like, all these cars are in Oklahoma City.
Yeah,
like,
it's
what?
crazy.
You know, and then you get around the people and the culture, and it ties into music and artwork and all these awesome businesses around it, and all these people. And it doesn't matter if you're driving a $450,000 supercar, or, you know, a $2,000 old school hot rod that you've put $20,000 into it, right? Like, everyone is is automotive car person, right? And it's just great to see. And you know, and then you tie in the vans and the artwork and everything else. Like, it's such a cool industry to be a part of, and it brings so many people together that wouldn't necessarily mingle.
Definitely,
right?
Definitely.
You walk Coffee and Cars at Remington tonight, and you're just like, there's no way these people would mingle. Yeah,
Coffee and Cars is so fascinating. I mean, it's like a social experiment.
Yes.
And that is what is amazing about it, right? I mean, and everybody has like a car story, no matter what, whatever. Your first car, you know, you kissed a girl on the first date or something like that. You know, everybody has a car story. And so with my van, it's great because it's my utility vehicle as well. I can put scaffolding and ladders, and I spill paint in it, and I spray painted the sides of it. It's not not a fancy vehicle, but just being able to like I don't know. It's so silly. It's just a big old blue van, and I get so many people that are like, "Oh man, nice old school." You know, like they comment about it, or, "Oh, I had one of those in high school," or something. You're like, "Yeah, man, that's great."
Yeah.
And so I like to paint cars as well. That's a lot of the subject matter for my work.
Okay.
You know, like a Route 66 mural. Well, I would love to do that and put whatever a 1953 Chevy two-door or something, or whatever. Like, I just like that motif because, again, anytime I've painted cars and stuff, there's somebody that has, like, some weird connection to whatever, you know.
How different is it to paint on a car compared to just murals?
Oh, man. I mean, like,
the
doing lettering and stuff on cars is great. It's super fascinating. I would say it's more nervy for me. Like, painting a big mural, I don't know, you can go over it a couple times, or at the very worst, you could just white it out or whatever.
Yeah.
But on a car, doing, like, any sort of lettering on a car is kind of like, I don't know, it's somebody's sacred space, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's more like pressure in the zone, like under the gun, kind of like, this is, you know.
But like pinstriping and that kind of stuff, I love it. I think it's amazing. And I like that on cars, you know, however people decorate them.
Yeah.
You know, you got the guys that have like 1 million bumper stickers, or some guy with pinstripes, or like whatever, some Spectra Flame wrap, or it's just so unique. And I like it when people express themselves. And so it's a art style in its own thing, you know.
Is that where you mentioned your Malibu? Is that where the old school hip hop and the Malibu comes in, and like that just era of just everything culture wise?
I mean,
music, art, cars.
It does. It all kind of hits there. I mean, I have had that car. That was my grandma's car.
Yeah.
So I've had that car in our family for a very long time. But it is great that cars do, again, kind of like meld culture in that way, right? I mean, Cars and Coffee is like a great example. Again, you've got like the hip hop guys and the punk rockers and then the old school classic guys. But they're all there together,
right?
Geeking out about whatever, you know. So I would say I like my automotives. Or my automobile's a lot like my music. Okay. Very eclectic. I'm down with anything. A lowrider or a rat rod or some old crappy van. Very interesting.
How does the minivan come around? Like the minivan come around? People have seen you whipping around in that.
So I have a van, a go-kart that matches my current van. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that was just another, I think it popped up on whatever, Marketplace, and somebody sends it to me and they're like, you could get this and paint this. I'm like, okay.
Was it already a van shell then?
It was. Okay. It was. So what it is a 1982 mini car. So it's kind of like the car that like a Shriner would drive around in a parade or whatever. And so we saw it and I traded an old Honda scooter and, moved some stuff around just so I could acquire this thing. I told my wife, like, hey, I got rid of the scooter. And she's like, yes. But come out to the van. You'll be real excited about the, and she was not, but, it's fun. But, it's just another silly thing. It's great. Yeah. So it's a tiny little van that fits in the back of my van and can drive it around and,
I saw it at Motors in the Alley for the first time. He was zipping around. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
Little flag on it.
Yeah.
Because someone else had one too, right?
I'm sure, yes, yeah.
Because I think there was two vans parked together. Maybe it was just you that had it at the time, but there was, I don't know who your buddy was with you that also has a van. And I was like, this is just the greatest.
The Vanimals, that's the van club here in Oklahoma City, yeah. So, and they've got all sorts of weird cars. That would be like a group that just kind of, Bus is the leader of that group, and he's just a whiz when it comes to like making things. Yeah, and that's like part of it with cars too, is there's a big DIY spirit, right? Like they're fabricating parts or making things work, and they may or may not be safe, but they're figuring it out, and that's exciting.
I think the community, the emotion, everything that ties into it, like you said, so many people, bringing people together through just a common love. Like I said, whether it's art, music, cars, Oklahoma City is such a melting pot and is continuing to be that. Yeah. Right? From the time you grew up here, whether it was just people driving through because of Route 66 or up I-35 or whatever it is, now you're like, it's always fun to look back and connect the dots, isn't it? We don't do it often enough.
I mean,
lucky
and
I force people to do it on the podcast.
Our current studio that we just moved into is an old gas station. You know, it was a gas station in the 1930s. No, it's right in the middle of the plaza. It's right next to Lyric Theater, and it's in between Lyric and Rad Bar. But it's a gas station. It has the canopy out. It's called Canopy. That's what we call it. But it does have like the awning
the street from
out there.
And
yep.
Yeah. And what's the new one's on the corner?
Barsen.
Barsen. Yeah. Like just.
Yeah.
So cool.
But yeah, we're on the north side of 16th Street, and even that,
it
used to be a gas station. Now it's an art studio. Like,
I love old gas stations. Right? People should. I mean, I'm glad you're in it, and it's being preserved, because there are so many that just get knocked down.
Yeah.
And, they don't get turned into cool things, but the structure's there. Why not use it? What's happening at the moment? What's kind of current things you're working on and excited for? Any projects coming up that we can tease?
Yeah, I mean, so the big thing is that gas station, art studio. We just opened that up in January. Me and my business partner, Carlos Barboza, also just an incredible muralist. He's been on the podcast. Yep. I mean, just incredible portrait painter. But we took over this gas station in October, gutted it entirely, redid the electric, tore down walls and ceilings and floors, and built walls and divided it up, and then invited our other friends. So Tony Thunder is in there, Dylan Bradway and Maeve Wise are also in this space with us.
Tony does all not stick figure. He does a very unique style of cartoon stuff.
Yeah, he does a lot of like comic, stuff, right? Yep, comic a lot of comic driven artwork, anime driven stuff, kind of punk rocky skateboard stuff. Maeve is in like very psychedelic, super bright colors and kind of flowing characters, and then Dylan is like super iconic. His work is like, I would also say, has like kind of a unique character to it. Flowing flowers and bright colors. But so I mean, we're all in that space. And that's right in the middle of the plaza, and we're just still fighting for art in the plaza and painting on stuff as much as we can. So that's the big thing. But
So right on the corner. I'll put the address for that.
Yep, 1717. Yep, easy to remember. Northwest 16th Street. But so we're there, and it's great. Now we're moved in. We can start programming the space. We're very lucky in the plaza. There's not a lot of room, and this space is huge, and we actually have like a big kind of parking lot out front where we can do live music and live art and whatever. Car shows. We're gonna have a car show this next Friday during Live on the Plaza. Just anything,
Awesome. And it's so cool to be, like I said earlier in the podcast, be a part of that community from early days to now, and see it become what it is, right? And this flourishing with restaurants and businesses and all the stuff happening. It's such a great spot. And then obviously the houses are around it. It's such a great neighborhood to be a part of. Finishing up, tying into my day job and houses, last question of the day. If you could build your dream house today, what is it? What does it look like? What would you have?
Man, this is I feel like a nerd saying this, but the house that I live in is the house that I'm going to live in forever.
Tell me about it.
Right down the street from the plaza. It's a very small house. It's 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, but it was my wife's house before it was my house. And I mean, whenever we met, we got engaged in the plaza and we got married in the plaza, and I was like, oh, okay, so we're gonna get married, like you can, well you could come live at my house. And she's like, I don't think so, bud. She's like, you're gonna move in over here. And we've kind of just always committed to being in this neighborhood. We just love our neighbors, and we love the plaza area, and so I would say that that's going to be that's my house. So a 1930s bungalow style house, like.
Yeah. Do you have a room in there, a place of zen and peace, or do you just walk down to the studio?
No, I have 3 dogs, so there is really no 3 dogs and a kid, 11-year-old boy, and so no, there's not a lot of quiet around our house. It's pretty hectic.
Does your son share your love of creativity?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I would say he kind of likes art. He really likes cars as well. We'll go to Cars and Coffee together. But yeah, we like gardening. We have a lot of like big pollinator garden in our front yard, so we're very into nature.
Yeah.
That would be our like thing, you know.
Yeah. What dogs you got?
We have 2 huge goofy dogs. They're just rescue dogs, but they're very, very big, kind of like a Catahoula style.
Okay.
Big dogs. And then I got a very old Brittany Spaniel dog from...
Dogs are the best.
Yeah, they are the best. Dogs
Big
are the
dog
best.
fan.
Yeah.
Dogs over cats for me, always.
My big dogs, they were my muse for the barking dog shirt.
Okay.
You know, they're featured on the big dog shirt.
That's gonna last the test of time too. All right. Well, if you're gonna stay in your house, you're already in it. What about dream van or car?
Oh man, that's another interesting one. I don't know, man. I just like what I have. Yeah. Just keep it simple. If my van ran more safely, economically, then that would be good. If I got more than like 9 miles per gallon, then that would be very cool. Efficiency would be neat. But I think that's kind of a daydream whenever you're driving a 30-year-old vehicle. But
I always say last question, and I ask 7 other more. So if you were to have one piece that you would just be like, this is my piece. This represents me the best out of everything that you've done. What is it and why?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
A very difficult question. I don't know. Sometimes I say like, yesterday's art is like the worst thing to an artist, right? So I like that whenever I complete a piece, it's nice. You can kind of clean your hands of it and you're on to the next one. Like, what can you do that's better? How do I progress from that? What lessons did I learn while installing this? Wear more sunscreen or whatever. But I would say, definitely a respirator or something. But some of my like proudest works, I would say there's a cool mural that is in the Parlor. It's like a restaurant collective downtown.
Is it the one that's on the stairs?
Yeah, it's in the stairs. And that was like just so challenging. It's very high up. It's built into a corner or whatever. The mural has an interesting optical feature when you're like looking at it from far away at the right angle. Kind of makes it look like this car is floating in air. And it's surrounded by this big optical illusion pattern or whatever. And I like that kind of stuff. I really like murals that are engaging. And for me, that's one that I think is engaging. It kind of captures like my love for vehicles because it's an old truck. And then my love for like just optical illusions, like painting into a corner and it still being like visible is real interesting. So
that stuff's so cool when you're like, a lot of people do it on kind of walls or the floor, right? You're on the street and they're like paint like a giant
perspective thing.
And you're like, people like don't walk over it, they walk around it.
Right.
There's so many cool things like that.
Yeah.
And it's for me, it looks like it's really hard to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Super. It's challenging, and I think that's probably why I liked doing that one as well. Again, I got to walk away from that project, and I had learned some things. It's like, oh, okay, achievement unlocked. I can now do this, paint into the corner or whatever. And I think that's my takeaway on a lot of jobs. Whether it's even just sign painting. I painted some big stuff for Butcher Barbecue recently. Oh yeah, just huge letters.
To eat food.
Oh yeah, the best barbecue in Oklahoma City. But big old letters across the top on corrugated metal. And it was super tricky. And you are out there and it's hot and you're just troubleshooting. Yeah. But,
on Route 66, also car guys. Yep. There's a great clip somewhere on their Instagram of, I think it's Leo doing donuts in his car in the restaurant before they open. Like, this is great. I need to get those guys on the podcast. We've talked about
100%,
I need to do that. But, mate, thanks for coming down. Appreciate your time. Glad we could finally do this. I love seeing your success. I love seeing whether it's a Thunder t-shirt, the Paula mural, all the work you're doing, the recent stuff with Butcher, with us on Route 66 as well. Like, all this stuff ties together. I look forward to it. And, if people want to come see your work, they can go to the Parlor and see that place you just mentioned, or come to your new space.
Yep, you can come to the Canopy, or you can find my stuff. OKIE Dust is is what they call me on Instagram. But yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Mike.
For people listening, we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do.
This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other.
If you're looking for a way to make a real difference, check out Bethany Children's Health Center. They're helping children reach their full potential as a leader in pediatric rehabilitation. They're also building a new Outpatient Center of Excellence, and it's going to be a landmark right on Route 66. Want to learn more or even schedule a tour? Just head to bethanychildrens.org and click on the Ways to Give tab. That's bethanychildrens.org.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.